You're gonna take your hands, bring them to blocks, and have them about as wide, at least as wide as your yoga mat, let's say. And you're gonna slide your bum back like this and come more like child's pose. But as you go back, you're gonna send your armpits up to the sky like this as you send your chest down towards the ground, somewhere in between Anahata Asana and child's pose. But the objective here is to keep the armpits lifting. That's really the most challenging part. Most of you, as you start to send the chest down, the armpits will go down with you like this. You're gonna try to keep the armpits lifted, and that's what's gonna enable you to have more mobility in the shoulders. So armpits lifted as the chest goes down. One of the things I'm doing is actually I'm kind of pressing down into these blocks. I'm pushing down to lift the armpit up. Let's move to the next step, which is going to be that same drill, but at the wall. Many of you, if you've done heart opening with me, you've done this drill with me. So you can take your hands to a wall and melt the shoulder blades toward each other. And it's really, I should be really accurate here, the upper shoulder blades come together. The bottom wingtips of your scapula are actually spreading wide apart. So now take your hands and bring them to the wall here, like this, with hands wide. And with your hands wide, move your hips back like so, and keep your armpits up. With your armpits lifted up, you're gonna try to move your chest down. So my hands are outer shoulder width apart, and my armpits lifting up to the sky as I start to move my heart down. Now the challenge here is to keep the back in an arched position. So yes, it's a big hamstring stretch. As my butt goes up, as my chest goes down, I'm trying to keep the armpits lifted. Fingers grip the wall, and you're trying to actually almost like you're trying to pull the paint down off the wall. That's what, if you pull your hands down, that's what will get your armpits lifted up. So if you feel like your armpits drop at any point, back out of the pose and keep the armpits lifted and then lower again. Okay, for most of us, this is gonna be very challenging to do, to keep the armpits lifted and the hands going up. This is just gonna be a stretch for the pectoralis muscles, okay? And this is what's gonna give you the mobility in the upper back and shoulders to get into full wheel. This is a necessary prerequisite. For this, we can now move to the wall. We're gonna put a heel vertically on the wall. So this is just gonna teach us about the back leg of full wheel Urdhva Dhanurasana. And doesn't have to be completely vertical. Most of you, the toes won't work out for that. But you're gonna take your left foot forward and make sure your ball mound of the foot gets on the ground and then your heel to the ground. Okay, so you're not like fully stretched out of the toes, but you're also not like this, okay? You're not fully dorsiflexed. You wanna be more or less trying to be perpendicular to the ground with the foot. Okay, then come up to your lunge pose, and this is very important because we're gonna learn how to activate the back leg in full wheel. So push through your heel, activating your quads, and it'll also activate your buttocks a little bit. Because you're in such extreme extension in this, and because you're not against gravity, it's not quite the same as full wheel. Because in full wheel, if we were to push through our heel, we'd force the glutes to activate to move the hips forward. But just reach back in this direction, okay, into the wall, and then send your ribs forward so we really get a feeling of that full wheel position. Okay, or at least in the right side. Now bend the elbows and pull the shoulder blades towards each other. And as you do so, you see how my ribs are sending them forward and bowing the spine forward. And some of you might be able to reach back and maybe tippy fingers touch the wall. And that's really, if you do that with your chest forward, great. If you do that by moving your chest back, not great. So chest forward, shoulders back, reach back through your hands. If they don't touch the wall, no big deal. Okay, but the chest forward and reach through the back heel. Lean forward to come out of this. Okay, so now let's get our rolled up yoga mat or our 2 blocks on the diagonal. And you place the rolled up yoga mat at the wall, directly on the wall, to start our full wheel ascent. But I'm gonna show you first with the 2 blocks because that one's a little more complicated. You're gonna see I place the blocks wider than my mat width apart, but they're still diagonally on the wall. And in essence, what we need to do is, the reason why they're on a diagonal is it's gonna minimize the amount of wrist extension that's required for full wheel and take that kind of out of the picture, and you're gonna find that it's much easier for most of you to get your weight towards your heart because you're not fighting all sorts of discomforts in your wrist. So the key here for full wheel is hands wide, shoulders back, elbows a little wide. And if you were to try to rise up from here, it's fairly, I would say, incredibly challenging to just come up to full wheel from this position here. So what I do personally is I come up to bridge pose. I do it in stages. That starts to get my hands closer to the block. I don't put my heel of my hand on the block just yet. I keep them off the block like this. And then I come to the top of my head like this, and I bring my chest to the wall. You see how I bring my chest to the wall? Now at this point, I start to get some connection to the blocks and I can push down. I keep the elbows bent and I rock my heart to the wall. And then I start to extend the arms little by little by little. Now my feet are like they were in lunge pose. I'm kicking through the heel. My heart is moving towards the wall like we did in Anahata Asana, or that heart melting pose at the wall. Okay, so my shoulders and armpits are away from the wall as my heart goes towards the wall. Okay, first round, come on down and release. So I'm gonna use this time, instead of the blocks, I'm just gonna use the rolled up yoga mat. And I know that this mat is just slightly too narrow, so my pinkies will be off the mat, which is fine. I like to grab the side of the mat anyway. If I try to go into it right away, the elbows come in, my shoulders dislodge, and I feel pressure at the back of the shoulder. So I just go elbows wide, like I'm doing cactus pose, right? Just like you did in everything we've done, cactus shape. And then I lift the hips up, starting to activate the glutes, adjusting my feet accordingly, breathing. And then I come to the top of my head. Right? And then from the top of my head, I can start to work my heart towards the wall. Maybe I just stay here today and I push down through my inner heels. As I push down through my inner heels, you see my hips are progressively rising. I didn't just push right into the pose. Now, as I'm breathing, lengthening the belly, and the heart is coming towards the wall, I might start to gain access to my shoulders. I don't push all the way. I get to a point where I can breathe, move the heart towards the wall, adjust my feet if necessary, push down through the heels and soften. If I adjusted my feet on the way up, you gotta adjust your feet before you come down.